response was very positive, although it was tough to separate out the response from, to the film from the response to Roger Waters, who is absolutely, in Mexico, he is absolutely massive. He actually did 3 concerts in the city. He did a free concert on Saturday to about 200,000 people. So the film was kind of mixed in with, Roger's presence in Mexico City, so it was pretty amazing. Well, I'm not an expert on BDS as a movement and its actual effect. I think the major use of BDS is as a symbolic tool. I think it has been able to galvanize, kind of put focus on Israel's policies, overall, but especially in Gaza and in the West Bank, in a way that nothing else has been able to do. So I regard BDS as, it certainly is about changing policy and actual actions, but I think its greatest influence is in terms of its symbolic value. And we know that Israel itself is worried about this because they are doing everything they can to attack BDS. If they were not worried that BDS was going to be successful, and I think when I say successful, I think successful in turning a light onto what Israel is doing, not necessarily in terms of the boycott itself. I don't think BDS would be being attacked. And I think BDS is actually, as a symbolic movement, is our greatest strength at the moment. Is there a pro-Palestinian lobby? I wouldn't call it a lobby. I think there is a pro-Palestinian presence, or at least a Palestinian presence on social media, because Israel has not been able to control it and shut it down in the way that it's been able to do for mainstream media. So certainly, I think that is the one space that has been opened up that can be used to organize and to disseminate some kinds of information. And I think it's going to be the next. It's going to be the next place that Israel puts effort on to try and really control. But I wouldn't call it a lobby. But I think there is some balance in social media, and that there is another voice in social media. And that's all the film is really trying to do. It is to say, why can't we have a debate around these things? Why can't we have the opposing point of view fairly laid out fairly time, so that people in a democratic society can make up their own minds. And we know why that's the case, is when that other information comes out, people see very clearly that the Palestinians have been the victims in this conflict for a long, long time. Well, I think the two go hand in hand. The film makes the argument that the way to change the political end of this is through public opinion. And that's the only thing you can really do. The media, it's not surprising the media do what they do in terms of how they're structured. So I think the only thing we can do is to try and really get Americans to really understand what's going on, and to put pressure on their elected officials and to put pressure on the media to give a much more balanced view of these things. So obviously it's a very, very complicated situation. In the film, we talk about, how do you talk about the Israel lobby, and what is the function of the Israel lobby? Is it to essentially direct policy, or is it something else? And what we come out, we try to make that a very, very kind of careful statement. One of the reasons that the Israel lobby works so well is because it goes along with American interests and all the interests of the American government, and so it's not countering any kind of opposition. But the major function of the Israel lobby is to make sure that discourse and that debate never opens up, and to make sure it remains closed, so that there is no political pressure and there is no pressure that comes on media to try and do anything else. So in that sense, I think it's both chicken and egg, but we think the starting point, which is why we made the film, is really about American public opinion and trying to change things at the grassroots. Well, I don't see any other way or any other hope. You know, I mean, it's not going to have an immediate impact. Media are responsive. You know, they're not responsive to the public directly. They're also responsive to their own institutional structures and whoever owns them. But there's more of a chance of that happening in Canada, I think, where you actually have more public media. So someone like the CBC operates in a different way. It doesn't mean it's not under the same kind of control and pressure that comes from, and I know that there is an Israel lobby in Canada as well. A previous film that we did actually fell victim to that, and so I know all about these pressures exist there as well. But they're not as intense in Canada for a whole variety of reasons. One thing, Canada doesn't give Israel the kind of money that the US does. But again, the lobby has to make sure, though, that even in the Canadian discourse is kind of kept under control. There's an interesting survey that was done last year that asked Mexicans, Americans, and Canadians a very simple question, which is who is occupying who? And almost 50% of Americans thought that it was the Palestinians that were occupying Israel. But Canada wasn't that far behind. 34% of Canadians thought the same thing. And about 39% of Mexicans thought the same thing. So being close to the US, the propaganda does spill over. And I'm sure you'll see some of the same things going on where you are as well as in the US. Well, I think there's, like any kind of political struggle, I think it's on two levels. I think on the one hand, we have to think about how do we struggle around institutions, and how do we make these media structures more democratic? How do you make the political structures more democratic? I mean, that's those are broad-based struggles. I think on an individual basis, though, we can also speak and raise our voices and make sure that when these issues comes up, that it's not a one-sided debate that's taking place. And I think more than anything, what we want what the film really talks about is why is there such fear of having a discussion around these issues. And so anything that we can do to raise discussion and in one sense, essentially force people to really debate these issues, I think, is important. That means writing back to the media. It also means talking to your friends. It means talking to people about these issues when they say things that you don't believe. So I think that there's always things that we can do in our everyday lives. I hope people will take this film, and the film is available immediately. It's on our website is www.occupationmovies.com. And you can get it for $5 as a streaming, you can buy it for $20. We hope one of the things that people will do will be to get the film and have screenings with it, and use the film as a catalyst for having the kinds of discussions and debates that we need to have, especially around the media portrayal. And ask the question, why are we not getting the full story? Why is there such fear? That we can't actually have two sides to the story. Almost uniquely in the American political context, almost uniquely, this is the one issue where there is almost no debate about how we should understand it. And that's what we need. We need more debate. No, thank you for the question. It's a good point. We do actually have an Arabic translation of the film, which we're just about to put up onto our site. And I believe George Nada is there, who's our distributor, and perhaps he can answer a question about, I think Al Jazeera has just ordered, and so I think it will be shown on Al Jazeera sometime in October or November. And I agree with you. I think in the Arab world, if we could show this in the Arab world, it would be very, very enlightening to people. The other place I have my own little fantasy. I would really love to play this, and I would really love to go like on a tour of the West Bank and Gaza and show it to Palestinians, and to show it to them, to say, look, this is why Americans seem to hate you. It's not some blind hatred that comes out of nowhere. They've been manipulated and controlled around this issue, and this is how I think about it. And I think it will be very enlightening for Arab audiences to look at how this image has been crafted in such a clever way. I think it will be very, very empowering as well to Palestinians. So I agree with you. I think that there is I would love for this film to be shown more broadly in the Arab world, and we have some hopes that will happen.
Okay, there's a question over there.
No, you're absolutely right, and but this is the place where, in one sense, it's been shut out. And we tried through, the film festival route is the first route in to try and get to distributors within the US, and we just haven't got any traction on that. We tried to get, no media will cover it. We've done lots of press releases about the film, and we've had zero media coverage on this. And we've had a small, we've had a Pacific station here or there that's covered it, which we're very grateful for. But there's been nothing more systematic, and it's really been shut out. Let me give you an example. I mean, this is where I live. I live in Western Massachusetts, and there is a theatre here, a small independent theatre that has 4 screens, shows lots of great films. They've shown other ones of our films, other films that we've done. And when I submitted it to them, I just said, "Could we just show this once?" I could get Roger Waters to come on Skype. It could be a really great event, etc. And they just replied, their words where they said, it's not right for our cinema. And so even locally, when we thought we may be able to get some traction, it has been almost impossible to get anything. I submitted it to Film Forum, which is an independent theatre in New York, and nothing came about either. The only place it's been shown has been, I showed it at the Jerusalem Fund last week, and at Busboys and Poets, which is a venue in Washington, D.C. But that was mostly through personal connections. And I wish there was one place we're hoping to really show it. Where we'll have some consistency. We're hoping to have it to be shown on campuses. Because on campuses there is some debate around these things. On campuses, where the students in Justice for Palestine are quite active. We think that there's a space that opens up for this kind of dialogue and for this kind of film. And so we are launching in a month or so. We're launching a campus screening strategy, whereby we'd like to get this shown in as many campuses as we could across the United States. Because that's about the only place that we think there's any possibility to have this kind of discussion. We said think that the Arab people know what's going on, the difference between Zionism and Judaism, and I'm sure they know some of that. I'm not too sure they really know about the propaganda, because the propaganda is hidden, and I think there is great value in drawing attention to that. I think even if you know all these, know all the facts, and even if you know that there's something wrong with the story that we're being told in American media, I think there is still something very, very empowering when you can be given knowledge as to why it's the case, and given knowledge as to about the techniques that are being used. So I think there's great educational value to that. In terms of whether it's up to the Arab world and whether it's up to Palestinians, those are much broader questions. The only thing but we're responsible for the things that we can influence. We're responsible for our own ethical and moral behavior. And within the US and within North America, the major thing we have to do is we have to get people to understand what's going on. So we have to be engaged in an educational effort here, a public educational effort, not just a formal educational effort. And I think, and that's part of it. We've seen when young people especially have been given different kinds, when they've been exposed to different kinds of stories, that their views on the conflict change. And as we say in the film, people like Frank Luntz, they're really in a panic about what is happening with young people and what is happening on college campuses, which is why there's going to be renewed focus and attacks on college campuses. People like Sheldon Adelson have put billions of dollars into groups that are viciously attacking individual students, putting their names up on posters and calling them Jew haters and anti-Semites in an attempt to really shut them up. So I think certainly everyone has their own responsibility on this, and the Arab world has its own responsibility, and there's reasons why the dictators over there have not taken on this cause. But I think if you're within the US, then the first stage is to have is to make good effort into having some effort into understanding the situation and to open up the dialogue here. Yeah, thank you. No, the film went through kind of many iterations, and most of our previous versions were quite long. And in previous versions, the focus on the evangelical Christians or the Christian Zionists was longer. But in the end, we had to make the film was getting longer. We knew we had to keep it. That 82 minutes was about the maximum to go. And so within that, we tried to do it as tightly as we could. And we felt we had to mention it because it's not just, the Israel lobby is not just about right-wing Jews. The Israel lobby is actually a much broader set of groups and a much broader set of institutions with their own interests. I mean, the evangelicals, of course, and it's very interesting. The evangelical support of Israel is very interesting because, of course, they'll only support the Jews until the end of it. And then, unless Jews convert, at the end, they'll be cast into hell forever. And so, the evangelical Christian support of Israel is very strategic. It's nothing to do with wanting to support Jews. It's to do with the fact that for the end times to come, Israel has to control the whole land from the Mediterranean to the Jordan River. And so for that's why they'll support Israel. The moment that happens, they will be cast to hell. It's a very, very interesting phenomenon where some of the most anti-Semitic groups are also the most, are the strongest in the support of Israel. One thing I would just urge people to do is, we need help to get this film out. If you could tweet about it, if you could, be on your own Facebook pages, do whatever you can in your social media to get it out. If you could, like us on Facebook, we have our Facebook page, we have Twitter pages. We need all the help we can get to try and get this out. If people could use their own social media to spread the word on this, it would be really, really helpful.